We got 7 different news stories from 7 different outlets, guys. It's time for another episode of Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with another episode of Regan's Newsround. And we start with The Guardian with the headline that Tory MPs are divided over social media attack on Labour using a picture of the BBC presenter. The party's X account uses picture of the presenter raising the middle finger to deride Labour, winning both condemnation and praise. So, for those who don't know the story, there was a story about recently about a BBC presenter basically giving the middle finger to the camera, and it ended up on TV. At the time of this recording, she has apologised. I don't believe she's lost her job, but the Conservatives decided to take that picture and use it on their social media, which we're going to see in this article shortly. Basically, as opposed to basically saying Labour doesn't have a plan to deal with immigration, and they're trying to push really hard the narrative that Labour are not going to sort out the problems of immigration. They're really pushing the agenda really hard at it. But Tory MPs according to this article, don't appear to be happy with the use of using someone's giving the middle finger as a gesture towards Labour. We'll have a look at it and then we'll see, guys. But I just think this isn't, there's a lot of things that the Conservatives have done which are pretty disgusting, but I think this is just as a horror. So the Conservatives' division over immigration have deepened further after the party posted an attack on Labour using an image of the BBC presenter with a middle finger raised, prompting jubilation from some Tory MPs and anger from others. The official Conservative account on X, formerly Twitter, posted an image on Thursday night of the presenter getting caught on camera jokingly raising her middle finger, accompanied by the caption, "Labour when you ask for their plans to tackle illegal migration." Yeah, so there's the caption, and I've got to say, I'm sorry, but this is so effing stupid. This is ridiculous. They are not in power. They're not the government. You are. You're the ones in government. It's just so absurd. They won't sort their crap out. This is desperation. This is desperation. This comes across to me when I look at this. It's desperation. The tweet appeared designed to refocus attention on the opposition party after a difficult 24 hours that saw a Prime Minister publish his new Rwanda bill, only for his immigration minister to resign over it almost immediately. Some MPs gleefully retweeted the image, including Jonathan Gullis, the MP for Stoke-on-Trent North, who commented, "I approve this message." Of course you would. However, others quickly condemned the attack advert, including Alistair Keynes, the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Keynes said, "It's a duty of an MP to improve the quality of debate, not behave like foul-mouthed, rabid roasters, completely lowering the tone. Colleagues endorsing this source of politics must take full responsibility for the green light that they are giving to abusive behaviour and discourse." Tobias Elwood, another backbench MP, tweeted, "Please delete this post." One MP who did not want to be named said, "I'm lost for words. This is a gutter politics." Another added, "Colleagues are furious." Yeah, it's not the way. Yeah, they're trying to buzzlessly point the finger at Labour. It's really trying to push it on the Labour. This is. But on Friday, newly appointed Migration Minister Tom Pusko defended the tactic. He told BBC Radio 4 Today programme, "I've not spent an awful amount of time on Twitter in the last 24 hours, as you imagine, having just been appointed yesterday and trying to immerse yourself in all the detail. But the bottom line is it does highlight the fact that the Labour Party doesn't have a credible alternative. I'm sure that Arika and other colleagues will have fed in their views to central office and the party chairman. Meanwhile, other users sought to ridicule the Conservatives by tweeting their own versions of this image. One tweeted the same presenter with the caption, "Tories when you ask them to do their job." Another tweeted a picture of the Tory MP Angela Jenkins raises her middle finger to a crowd outside Downing Street last year with the comment, "Conservatives when you asked them how net migration quadrupled under their watch." Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You could easily hypocrite them for this. It's ridiculous. The The row highlighted the way in which Sunak attempted to restart his scheme to send asylum seekers to Rwanda have left his party even more divided over immigration than they were before. Right-wing Tory backbenchers said they are willing to vote against the bill if it does not incorporate changes they are likely to demand in the coming days. Meanwhile, centrist MPs have made clear the dissatisfaction about Sunak's decision to overrule some of Britain's domestic and international human rights obligations in an attempt to get flights off the ground. Yeah, it's like, okay, let's just look at it, guys. Just look at it. Like you could just put the same caption and just say Conservatives when you ask them to deal with the cost of living crisis. Conservatives when you ask them to deal with our national healthcare service. Conservatives when you ask them about climate policy. Conservatives when you ask them about why our waters are filled with sewage. Conservatives when you ask why crime is going through the roof. Conservatives why you ask why the housing market is blown up and it's overpriced. Conservatives when you ask them about anything within reason. Conservatives when you ask why Rishi Sunak uses a helicopter instead of a train. Just putting that in there. I mean, you could just... I've just given you guys lots of ammunition there. There's so much ammunition you can use for this. It's preposterous. It's preposterous. They are so stupid. They are so goddamn stupid. It really, really is bad. I'm lost for words, guys. I'm sure you guys are lost for words too. But damn. Well, sticking with the whole Rwanda immigration scheme, guys. Let's put the spotlight back where it belongs, on the Conservative government, because that's where things should be. Because they want to talk about it, so we'll talk about it. So this one from Sky News, guys. Rwanda vote does not about leadership, says Rishi Sunak, as he dodges election question. So the Prime Minister has sought to defend the controversial bill from critics following the resignation of Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick, who called it a triumph of hope over experience. This is a desperate... when he done this press conference, guys, I honestly thought he was going to do something absolutely radical and insane, and he did not. So it's more of a plea to his Tory backbenchers to get behind him, and I just don't think he's got the spine to do it. It's starting to look more and more like there's going to be a general election cloak, maybe a lot sooner than we expect. There's also that fear, of course, that we are going to have Rishi Sunak ousted and another leadership contest is going to happen. I know, I don't want that either, but that may be what's going to be coming down the road. But they just don't get it. They Suella Braverman speaking in the Commons as well, basically saying it's do or die for the Conservatives if they don't get these flights up, which, by the way, the vast majority of people don't approve of this policy. They really do not. It's a small minority of people approve of this. The vast majority do not approve of this. The vast majority of the British public don't approve of this. And they're trying to perpetrate this as this is what Britain wants. This is not what Britain wants. And he's desperately trying to cling on here. And I feel like the cracks are coming, the slip is coming, and he could potentially be ousted before Christmas. Potentially, it is still possible. But let's read into it a bit, guys. So Rishi Sunak has dodged questions over whether he will call a general election if he loses a crunch vote on his Rwanda bill, which he insisted was not a vote of confidence in his leadership. The Prime Minister repeatedly defended the bill from its critics at a press conference on Thursday as questions mount over whether it will be able to pass in the Commons next week. Mr Sunak described the bill, which compels UK judges to treat Rwanda as a safe country for asylum seekers, as the toughest anti-immigration laws that has ever been brought in, adding that he knew it would upset some people. The Prime Minister convened the news conference just hours after Robert Jenrick quit his post as Immigration Minister over the bill, in which he said it does not go far enough and represented a triumph of hope over experience. During the press conference, Mr Sunak was asked by Sky News political editor Beth Rigby on whether he would call an election if he could not get the bill through Parliament. You've lost control of your party and this has become a confidence issue, not in Parliament but in you, she said. Do you accept that? And will you call an election if you lose the votes? Mr. Sunak dodged the question and said he wanted to finish the job. He's not saying, "I am confident I can get this thing done." No, you can't. You ain't going to get backing of Labour. You haven't got the backing of enough Conservative MP. You ain't going to get this through. This is not going to happen. There will not be flights going off to Rwanda, guys. It's not going to happen. Yeah, because even if the bill gets through, it will get shot down by the House of Lords because it goes against international human rights. So it won't even get through the House of Lords. That's the thing. It won't even get through the House of Lords. It will not get through. Even if they sit them through the whole Christmas, it will not get through. It will not happen. The government published the long-awaited Safety of Rwanda bill just a day after Home Secretary visited the country to sign a treaty aimed at reviving the government's troubled plan to send asylum seekers there. In its judgment last month, the UK's highest court ruled the scheme unlawful on grounds that it could be returned to their home countries and face harm, a process known as refoulement that would breach international law. Exactly. Why would the House of Lords approve a bill that's going to breach international law? They won't. They simply won't. We are wasting so much taxpayer money giving it to Rwanda. It's ridiculous. The emergency bill was designed to appease both wings of the Conservative Party, the right wing and the more moderate One Nation group, by allowing the UK to disapply aspects of the Human Rights Act, but not the legislation in its entirety. But the Tory right, including Mr Jenrick and the former Home Secretary Suella Braverman, wants the bill to disregard the entire Human Rights Act with regards to asylum cases, as well as include extra powers to dismiss challenges under the European Convention of Human Rights, the ECHR. Speaking to the BBC today, Ms Braverman was clear in her belief that unless the Prime Minister chose to change the course and alter the bill to totally exclude international law, it would fail. Mr Sunak said the new bill fundamentally addresses the issues brought up by the Supreme Court that would allow flights to take off to Rwanda. He said Mr Jenrick was not right in his assessment and denied suggestions that he would fail to keep his promise on immigration. No, he's simply not right, actually, he told reporters. So it's a piece from Sam Coates, Deputy Political Editor of Sky News. Sunak has picked a side. We must wait and see if his party tears him down. Rishi Sunak has done something very important. He has placed his stake in the ground, absolutely unambiguous about how he is and how he isn't going to tackle illegal migration. In doing so, he has picked a side, and now we wait to see whether his party will go along with her or tear him down. Mr Sunak made the argument in the press conference that he has come up with the toughest ever and toughest possible approach to try and get the Rwandan policy actually into action. But he's not doing that by leaving international conventions and international laws. He's gone as far as he thinks he can go without doing that. He was effectively explaining that to the British public. He was saying that we're going to pass a law that simply says Rwanda is safe. He says that we're going to pass a law that domestic courts cannot take account of international law and European Convention on Human Rights. But he draws the line at actually leaving those international obligations and saying that we're going to ignore the final judgments from the Strasbourg Court. He did so saying that he went further Rwanda would collapse the Rwandan deal. But he has decided not to make this a back me or sack me moment. We're about to have this piece of legislation that he's going to try and get through the Houses of Parliament, but he's not confident enough to say this is what is known as a matter of confidence. In other words, if his MPs don't back him in sufficient numbers and this piece of legislation fails, there will be an election. It's quite clear Mr Sunak is putting all his eggs into the basket of trying to get this bill through. It only takes 29 Tory MPs to vote against it for the government to lose, and who knows what happens then. We think there may be an election, but we just don't know. Part of me feels like they're just going to oust him and try and get a new leader in before the next general election. That's what I feel they're going to do. I know, it's frustrating, guys. For the people who say that you should do something different, the difference between them and me is an inch. Given everything that we have closed, we're talking about an inch. The inch in that way is the difference between the Rwandans participating in this scheme and not. Pressed again on whether the vote of the Rwanda policy should be treated as a vote of confidence in his leadership, he replied, "No, but what this vote is about the confidence in Parliament." He said the question is now to the Labour Party whether it would back the bill, something the party has confirmed it would not do. Why? Why should Labour back the bill? What's Labour got to do with this? They're the opposition. They're going to oppose your bills. That's the whole point of the opposition. Why would they back your bill? What a dumb thing to say. Absolute stupid thing to say. Speaking to Sky News this morning, Labour's National Campaign Coordinator Pat McFadden said the government was tearing itself apart over the Rwandan scheme. The Prime Minister has admitted that the Rwandan government had to warn the UK government not to break international law, he said. You've got to wonder what is the point of them if they're just going to carry on like this. Exactly. What is the point, guys? What is the point of carrying on if they cannot move on from this? It's an absolute farce, guys. It's really is. And there's this whole Rwanda thing. It's just nothing but a distraction tactic, guys. Nothing more. I will be forced to go rile myself back on lots of things if it ends up, if those flights do take off. I myself and lots of us here will end up on YouTube will look like absolute wallies. But I tell you what, I'm very confident that it will not happen. I'm very confident. The repercussions of it is just going to be so immense and so damaging for the UK for such a long time if they do this. And the important caveat I've already mentioned as well is that once they go to Rwanda, they don't come back. They won't be allowed to come back. Once they get on that flight to Rwanda, they're gone. They won't be allowed to come back to the UK, regardless. Like, they're making all these concessions, and they won't be allowed to come back. If you guys want more information about this as well, I recommend checking out Zoe Gardner on YouTube and at Zoe Gardner on Twitter as well. She is an independent immigration policy expert. She knows this stuff top to bottom, so definitely go check her out. She has some really insightful information who knows this stuff very well, guys. I will put the links in the description for her if you guys want to check her out. So, the COVID inquiry, guys. So, obviously, I covered a video regarding the COVID inquiry on my thoughts on the first day of Boris Johnson, and obviously he had the second day. I could not content myself to watch another 6 hours of him, unfortunately. I did watch about half of it, and then I just couldn't do it anymore. I just could not do it. But we're going to look at one or two stories from that inquiry, guys. So this one here from the BBC is from the COVID inquiry, saying that he did not back a let it rip policy, says Boris Johnson. So Boris Johnson insisted he did not pursue a let it rip strategy during the coronavirus pandemic. Giving evidence to the COVID inquiry, he said he did offer counter-arguments in order to challenge the consensus in the meetings. He argued his actions proved he worked to curb the virus rather than allowing it to spread through the population. He also rejected the idea that he was slow to act when cases began rising again in the autumn of 2020. In his second day of testimony at the inquiry, he denied that he had been reluctant to lock down a second time because he was prepared to let other people die to keep the economy open. In a techie exchange, he called the idea rubbish and insisted he had aimed to save human life at all ages. Guys, I'm going to tell you, I don't know if I watched that part or not. But I will say there were times where there was lots of times as I've said this in my video on my video. I'll put a link for the video in the description if you guys want to check that out. But there were times where I listened to this guy, and I'm seeing his facial expressions, the way he comes across, the way he postures, and everything. It does not feel like a man that generally cares or is sorry for some of his actions and things that he has done. It doesn't come across like that at all to me, and it angers me, And apparently he even did like a heartfelt story about when he was in the hospital when he had coronavirus as well, trying to be somber sort of thing. And it was just like people don't buy you. Partygate happened. There were so many people were saying Boris saying things like let the bodies pile high or let the old people die, and all these things were coming out from so many places. I just don't trust this man and take his word for it. I mean, he's saying he didn't say that, but it's his word over others. At the end of the day, Mr. Johnson had faced nearly 10 hours of questioning this week, for which he had reportedly prepared for hours with his government-funded inquiry lawyers, and has submitted a 233-page witness statement. His first day of testimony on Wednesday was interrupted by protesters, with demonstrating outside the inquiry building on both days, holding pictures of lost loved ones and cheering his departure. His second day of evidence focused on the autumn of 2020, when Mr. Johnson had been accused of being too slow to reimpose restrictions after cases shot back up again. In one exchange, he was shown extracts from diaries of Sir Patrick Vallance, of the government's chief scientific advisor at the time. In an entry from October, Sir Patrick said Mr. Johnson had argued for letting it all rip, quoting him as saying, "Potential victims had a good innings and reached their time anyway." When the inquiry-led lawyer put it to him that he had secretly held views that made him reluctant to reimpose restrictions in the autumn, he shook his head, and he could be heard saying honestly under his breath, "The implications is that you are trying to draw from those conversations is completely wrong," he replied. "My position is that we had to save human lives at all ages. If you look at what we actually did, never mind the accounts of what we actually culled from people jolting from meetings, if you look at what we actually did, we went into lockdown as soon as we could. I had to challenge the consensus in that meeting." Mr. Johnson later said he regretted the hurt and offence some of his language had caused, before adding, "A lot of what has been reported is incorrect, and there are words that are described to me that I simply don't recognise." He explained that he spoke in an unpolished way, that because he wanted others to speak freely. The evidence doesn't say that. We're going to be covering some of this more in an article as well from the Independent, guys, so there will be some rinse and repeat again. The former Prime Minister also told the inquiry he agonised over whether to introduce a circuit breaker in autumn 2020, but decided a regional approach or tier system was worth a try. The tier system was divisive and difficult to implement, involving laborious negotiations over financial support. He was desperate to keep schools open in January 2021, but it just wasn't a runner, given the schools were terrific reservoirs of the virus. Media representatives of Partygate rule-breaking event in Downing Street were a travesty of the truth and a million miles away from reality. The controversy over Dominic Cummings' journey to Barnard Castle was a bad moment. Social distance guidance was logistically impossible to follow at all times in Number 10, given the meetings held during the pandemic. The world still needed answers about the real origins of COVID. Mr. Johnson was also asked about the Eat Out to Help Out, the government-sponsored discount scheme to encourage people to go back to restaurants after they reopened. He said measures not seen as a gamble were introduced, and that he had not subsequently seen evidence that proved that it made a big difference to the infection rate. There had been a conflicting evidence as to whether the scheme did propel the virus, and a surge of cases across in the UK mirrored the rise in other European countries, which he did not have the scheme. In previous hearings, the inquiry had been told that neither senior scientific advisors nor Matt Hancock, Health Secretary at the time, were told about the scheme before it was announced. Mr. Johnson said he was perplexed at the suggestion top advisors had been unaware of the plan, adding that it was not a secret and had been discussed several times in meetings in which I believe they must have been present. He believes they were present. They weren't present. The inquiry also saw extracts from Sir Patrick's diary, which includes the line, "Wales very high, PM says it is singing, and the obesity, I never said that." Mr. Johnson was asked about the alleged remarks about Wales, which appeals in the entry dated September the 11th, 2020. The former Prime Minister was largely measured during the hearing about robustly defending himself against accusations he did not care about people suffering during the pandemic. Becoming emotional, he recalled his time in intensive care after contracting COVID. "I saw around me a lot of people who were not actually elderly. In fact, they were middle-aged men, and they were quite like me. And some of us going to make it, and some of us weren't." He knew from that experience what an appalling disease it was. To say that I didn't care about the suffering that was being inflicted on the country is simply not right. Mr. Johnson's successor, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, is due to give evidence to the inquiry on Monday. Save the date, Monday, guys. Becky Kumar, a spokesperson for the COVID-19 Bereaved Family for Justice UK, said Mr. Johnson's evidence showed that he failed to take the pandemic seriously in early 2020, leaving us brutally unprepared, and failed to learn from his mistakes, meaning that the second wave had an even higher death toll than the first. He delays a fear of how it might impact his reputation with certain sections of the press. There are many lessons from the pandemic that might save lives in the future, but one of them is undoubtedly is that someone is self-serving, as Boris Johnson is not fit for power. We will be rambling on and on and on about Boris Johnson, that is for sure, guys. Pathogen liar. He just never showed it to me. We're going to talk more about Boris Johnson anyway, guys. In fact, I think, what we might do, actually, I was going to go to a funny video, but I think what we'll do is we will go straight to it now. Let's just go straight to the article from The Independent, and then we'll take a little break. So this one from The Independent. So Boris Johnson claimed Partygate coverage is a million miles from the truth in extraordinary rewriting of history. So the former Prime Minister hit out at the drastic representations of what went on in Number 10 as he tied himself in knots and backtracked on his own witness statement. Yeah, so his own witness statement, he backtracked on it, basically. Like, you tell me, guys. Literally, his own evidence he provided to the inquiry. No, that's not true. So Boris Johnson embarked on an extraordinary rewriting of history over Partygate as he gave evidence to the COVID inquiry, insisting the public's perception of lockdown breaching party was, in Number 10, a million miles from the truth. In the comments that will infuriate families bereaved during the COVID pandemic, the former Prime Minister said the representation of repeated gatherings during the pandemic was absolutely absurd. Pressed about the saga which sparked an eventual downfall as PM, Mr Johnson said the way Partygate had been presented was a travesty of truth. I apologise for the offence caused. If I had at my time, again, of course, had done things differently. Of course, I would have done things differently, Mr Johnson said. But he added the characterisation and representation of there has been of what civil servants and advisors were doing in Number 10 have been a travesty of the truth. They thought they had been working very hard, which they were, and I certainly thought they were doing so, as I said before, within the rules. Now the pictures don't. There were pictures there that painted the pictures that we saw painted a very different picture of what Boris Johnson said. We've seen evidence of what Partygate was really like. You know, bring your own booze. It's just like no one, like, I want to put this out there. Nobody is saying that we do commend the work that's been done by civil servants and those at Number 10, during the crisis. But to try and defend Partygate, there's no reasonable excuse for this whatsoever. None whatsoever. Especially for those who couldn't see their loved ones, those who lost their loved ones during that. There's no defence of this. I mean, he says he apologises for the offence caused. No, he's sorry that he got caught. Okay? Because if he hadn't got caught, he would not apologise for it. Yeah, he's sorry that he's been caught out on this. He's not sorry at all for what he's done. Now, he added that the versions of events that has entered the popular consensus is what is supposed to have happened in Downing Street is a million miles away from the reality of what actually happened in Number 10. This is a good part, and I saw this. This was really good. The inquiry chair, Baroness Harlett, slapped down Mr Johnson's defence of the Partygate scandal, saying that it exacerbated the suffering of families bereaved during the pandemic. One of the problems is that I've received is that a number of messages from bereaved families is that I've travelled around the United Kingdom, and so many of them who have suffered horrific grief during the lockdown, she said. On the second day, so here's some of the stuff on the second day of the COVID inquiry. The inquiry chair, Baroness Harlett, was forced to warn hecklers in the room not to protest during Mr Johnson's evidence. Yeah, she had to bring that up again because there was a lot of anger and frustration, obviously. Tensions were super high when they were talking about Partygate. So I did get as far as watching that. And I'm glad that she kind of intervened and reminded Johnson, like, the bereaved here, because it really was tough to take for people there. It really was. The inquiry heard the former PM called his own COVID rules stupid and referred to the government's own face mask policy as effed up. He backtracked on his own witness statement after being grilled over the claims the Eat Out to Help Out scheme was discussed with senior advisors. The former PM squirmed for 3 minutes as he was shown all the times that he used the term "let it rip," referring to COVID. Yeah. He said he never said "let it rip." Hugo Keith just pulled up piece after piece after piece of evidence of him saying that. So many times he said that. So many times. And eventually he got to a point where the Prime Minister is just sitting there, like, literally, like, moping on the desk there. Like, dude, it's there. You said it. You can't deny it. It's right there. Mr. Johnson admitted Dominic Cummings' infamous Barnard Castle trip was a bad day and obviously damaging to trust in government. Well, you allowed him to do that speech in the gardens as well. You allowed that. You're the one who let him do that. He also privately criticised Test and Trace, telling advisors 1 month into lockdown that the screen was just whistling in the dark. Yeah, you approved of it. You approved of it. The COVID-19 Bereaved Family for Justice campaign group said the session showed Mr. Johnson did not get the big calls right. The former Prime Minister failed to take the pandemic seriously in early 2020, leaving us brutally unprepared, and failed to learn from his mistakes, meaning that the second wave had an even higher death toll than the first, it added. Spokesperson Kemi Kumar said even when we knew measures needed to be taken to protect lives, he delayed for fears of how it might impact his reputation with certain sections of the press. The Liberal Democrats also condemned the former PM's attempts to rewrite history as Partygate as desperate. Deputy Leader Daisy Cooper told The Independent these parties were investigated by the police and Boris Johnson accepted a fine for breaking the lockdown rules. It's baffling that he continues to try and deceive the country. Boris Johnson cannot expect his apology to be taken seriously when he continues his desperate attempt to rewrite history. It came after Mr. Johnson, who quit as an MP before he could be forced out for lying in Parliament, backtracked on his own witness statement, was grilled by the Inquiry Counsel, Hugo Keith KC, over the claim that he knew the controversial Eat Out to Help Out scheme was discussed with top scientists Sir Patrick Vallance and Professor Sir Chris Whitty before it was launched. When questioned, he backtracked on his original statement, saying on Thursday that he assumed it must have been discussed. Both Sir Chris and Sir Patrick have said they were blindsided by the hospitality scheme. Mr. Johnson was one of 83 people to have received 126 fines for Downing Street parties, which breached the UK pandemic restrictions. He was given a fixed penalty notice by the Metropolitan Police for attending his own birthday party in the Cabinet Room on the 19th of June 2020. And there, guys, there is a reminder, there is a picture. Look, you can see the drinks and stuff there, like this was during the pandemic. Like, this is part... That's not a meeting. That is not a meeting. That is not a meeting. Desperate attempts to play down Partygate before the COVID inquiry. The official Partygate report laid bare a shocking culture of Mr. Johnson's Downing Street. It exposed booze fueling party into the early hours, a wine time Friday tradition, an altercation between staff and a karaoke machine at the ready. The 37-page report divides into 12 events, started with a gathering in number 10 Gardens on the 15th of May 2020, when Boris Johnson bought wine and cheese from his own flat, and ended with a two get-together behind the famous black door on April the 16th, 2021, which was on the eve of the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral. That picture of the Queen, you know the one I'm talking about, guys. Anger over the scandal was such that it played a significant role in Mr. Johnson's fall from grace and eventual resignation. In further evidence, Mr. Johnson failed to take the scale of the scandal seriously. The COVID inquiry is showing evidence he called the public fury when it came to light insane, telling advisors, "Let's smash on." In a December 2021 WhatsApp message, as the scandal was growing, Mr. Johnson told Cabinet Secretary Simon Case that he was really sorry for the grief it was causing him. "This whole business is insane. We'll get through it and come out on top," he said. Mr. Case replied to the PM, "Thanks, it's a bit grim, but hopefully it will pass." And in a message that suggested he was aware of repeated gatherings in the Downing Street press office, Mr. Johnson wrote back, "In retrospect, we should have told people above all, Comms Chief Leaf Kane, to think about their behaviour in number 10 and how it would look. But now we must smash on." Smash on. You cheek. You got the audacity to say that. Absolute cheek, guys. What what's my final thoughts on it, on Boris Johnson and his stuff, guys? I'd like to say that there will be some criminal charges towards the former Prime Minister. I know people want him to face that, but hand on heart, I just don't see it happening. I could be wrong. He could still face them, but the whole point of the COVID inquiry is to learn from the mistakes of it. But there was so much anger, so much frustration, and so much grief over them having parties while people were dying. It's diabolical. And I didn't see a man there that was truly sorry for what he did. Truly at all. He came across like, I just felt he was just playing an act there. He never took... He honestly... I just honestly feels like that he did not understand the grief and the suffering that people went through at that time. He really does not. He really, really does not, guys. I think it's time we broke the ice, guys, shall we? Let's hear for some very important broken news, guys. Let's break the ice a little bit. Hope you enjoy this one.
Welcome to Broken News. Reports are coming in from Westminster of the sad death of a cat. The government has just made the announcement and it looks set to dominate the news for the foreseeable future. Our reporter has more.
It was at a hastily arranged press conference here at Downing Street where we, along with the rest of the compliant UK media, learned of the unfortunate demise of this cat. Before today, Broken News had been investigating allegations of substantial corruption in government and looking at numerous claims that a senior MP has for years been a big old sweaty nonce. But all of that unimportant news has now totally paled into insignificance by the unexpected passing of this unlucky feline. The government earlier presented the fallen tabby for broadcast and print media. They laid the former furball out on a table and we all turned our undivided attention to its dead stinking carcass, taking loads of pictures and vids so we could report the hell out of it and nothing else, like good boys and girls. It's the 78th little kitty cat to have died this year, meaning the news cycle has been somewhat dominated by the perpetually persistent perishing of these poor pussies. And one member of the opposition has claimed all the snuffed out snogglebums are a distraction from something far more sinister. But just as we were putting that to the number 10 press office, another cat sadly died. We'll get you more on that dead one as soon as we have it, but for now, back to you.
What a lovely story. Well, a brief look at other news and let's get the latest on the inquiry into serious allegations that the senior MP gave sexual favours in return for... Oh, and I'm just hearing about the sad and unexpected death of a cat. We'll have a special feature-length programme paying tribute to that cat later on tonight, and Broken News will interrupt all scheduled broadcasts for a dedicated week of programmes on this tragic story. That's all from Broken News. You're up to date.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, Larry and Paul. That is absolutely brilliant. Oh, jeez. Guys, please do me a favour. I know you're probably going to see it again, this video, but please, please, please go to Larry and Paul and watch the video on their channel and hit the like button and share and all that stuff, guys. Really do that because they are absolutely fantastic. Oh, that was really, really good, guys. We needed that, especially after what we were just talking about. A much needed, guys. For sure. So before I go to the next article, guys, can I just want to remind you guys, if you can, it says it right up there, guys, it says it right up there. That wasn't my middle finger, by the way. There, if you can, hit the like button, share across social media, hit the bell notification icon to be notified when I upload another video or when I go live. And if you're not already a subscriber, subscribe. It really does help. It really does help me out, guys. It really, really does. Right, so this next one, guys, I have to, because I'm out of order here, because we went with all that. So this one is from iNews, guys. So the headline is, Labour won't say if it would reverse the visa rule for foreign spouse. The party said it has real concerns over policy raising salary thresholds and calls for more scrutiny. So it sounds like here that Labour are sitting on the fence. Let's read into it, guys. So Labour has refused to say whether it will repeal the government's planned changes to spouse visas, which would prevent British citizens from earning less than $38,700 from bringing their partners to the UK. The party said it had real concerns about the policy and has called for greater scrutiny over the impact it would have. The rule changes due to be implemented in the new year would ban most people in Britain from being able to bring their children, husbands, wives, partners to live with them. Though only those earning $38,700 will be entitled to sponsor dependents, including children, elderly parents, as well as partners, to get a visa. Labour has called for the Migration Advisory Committee (MAC) to give the policy closer scrutiny, and has queried whether it could lead to a flurry of dependents moving to the UK in the months before implemented. Asked if the policy was right in principle, a Labour spokesperson said, "On the family visas, we have no real concerns about this policy. The government's own figures seem to show they would only lead to a relatively small reduction in numbers, but it is clear it would have a significant impact on families and couples who are affected, and it looks like it would punish those who fall in love with someone from another country if they don't earn almost £40,000 a year." It's just not right in any way, shape or form. It's forcing people to leave the country or move away from the UK. A lot of British citizens will end up packing up and leaving the UK because of this, because they won't be able to be with their loved ones, and some will have to be forced to choose between being with their family or being with their loved one, which is a horrible feeling, and it's ridiculous. We have one of the lowest migration takes in the whole of Europe. It's bonkers. The whole thing is just crap. It's just stupid. Labour should... I don't know why Labour shouldn't say they're going to reverse this. I don't understand why they're not going to say this. He added, of course, there has to be a sensible approach for setting those income thresholds for those joining families here in the UK, but major changes should be informed by proper evidence and scrutiny as why we haven't in this case and why we will be wanting to see it come forward. We want to see what evidence there is, and we want to see what impact assessment is. A spokesperson said that Labour was not committed to reversing the policy before knowing the impact it could have. Labour sources said the party refrained from stating whether it would repeal policies before they had been implemented. However, they hinted it would be reversed by a Labour government should the party's concerns be proven correct. Right, Home Secretary, yeah. So basically, essentially what they're saying is that they may do it, but they may not do it. But it seems likely that they will. But we know Labour have a knack here for U-turning on things. Home Secretary James Cleverly has argued the policy will ensure that people only bring dependents who can support financially. Currently, the minimum salary level is less than half the proposed one, $18,600. Under the new policy, people earning less than $38,700 threshold will be able to apply under an exemption under certain circumstances if they are a UK or Irish citizen or have settled under the post-Brexit arrangements for EU nationals. Number 10 also stressed that parties who are not able to come on a dependent visa could apply for the rights to live and work in the UK using other means. I think the main reason that Labour are not saying yes or no is simply because for two thresholds. So I think the first thing is, of course, I think they would upset a lot of their Labour base, as well as some backbench Labour MPs, if they were to say that they would approve of the policy. As well as myself and many other people. I'm sure people on Labour Social will be absolutely up in arms if they say that as well. So they would upset a lot of people if they approved of it. I think the reason why they are not saying that they're going to outright oppose it is because they are trying to appease to a certain group of voters, which they do not need to appease to, but they are trying to appease to them anyway. They're trying to keep their powder dry, basically, is the reason why I think Labour are doing it. Do I think it's right? No, of course not. I don't think Labour should be holding back on it. I don't think they should be calling it out, but hold Labour to the fire, guys. Hold them to the fire. Right, so this is more of an opinion piece rather than an article here from Open Democracy. So the headline is Government Crackdown on Migrant Workers is rooted in historical slavery. Migrant workers will be forced to leave their relatives without care in order to look after the wealthier and whiter. Like I said, this is an opinion piece, guys, and I thought this one was quite interesting. So the week in unveiling its latest draconian plans to curb immigration, banning those who come to the UK to work in the care sector from bringing their families, including children and spouses, with them. The plan has rightfully provoked outrage, but not entirely new. Its roots lie in historical slavery, in which enslaved people were separated from their own biological families, treated as commodities to be used to work and allow nothing more. It's plausible that the plan announced by the Home Secretary James Cleverly on Monday won't reduce applicants for the health and care visa by much in a globally unequal world. Mitigating to the UK for its arduous and underpaid work might still be someone's best bet for a better future. But in doing so, they'll be forced to leave their own dependents behind. Doubtless, this causes no more qualms for the government, but should perturb the rest of us. When we recruit migrant workers from poor countries to perform care labour, we perpetrate what academics Christina Whitaker has called transnational care extractionism. This idea recognises care as a vital resource, one extracted by wealthier countries for their own use at the expense of needs of poorer countries. The local crisis of care, Whitaker has explained, is transferred from the global north to the countries of origin from the recruited care worker. In this way, the manifestation of colonial power dynamics played out in private households and care homes across the UK. The new restriction forces would be migrants to regate their own dependence to the care defect back home, while we, the wealthier and whiter, use their care labour as their own. Carers are constructed as workers only rather than humans with lovely ties that ought to be recognised and permitted entry. This points to the deeper problem underlying Cleverly's announcement. Capitalism forces us to separate the worker from the human, and nowhere is this more obvious or more harmful than the realm of care. In the case of migrant care workers, this separation is made geographically explicit. They are allowing to come to the UK purely to work, and their humanness, with its potential cost to the state of children who need schooling or loved ones who need medical treatment, must be left behind. The local crisis of care is transferred from the global north to the countries to the origin of the recruited care workers. Yes, this is what it is, essentially, guys. As I said, this is unlikely to trouble ministers, but the policy creates another headache for the government. If the new restriction does reduce the number of people migrating to the UK to work in the already understaffed care sector, who bears the brunt? Unpaid family carers, who are statistically more likely to be older and therefore more likely to be Conservative voters. Unpaid carers are already in a dire situation. Research finds they are more likely than non-carers to live in poverty, to be isolated and depressed, and to suffer more from physical ailments, as well as having higher mortality rates. According to Carers UK, 25% of unpaid carers have had no days off caring for 5 years. While many more families will continue caring for loved ones even with more paid help, we should not underestimate the importance of paid care workers in providing support and respite. Any decrease in their availability will cause severe hardship among family carers who are already beyond the breaking point. Today in the UK, if you perform unpaid family care for 35 hours or more per week and earn under £139 per week from a paid work, you can claim carers allowance to help you get by, but this allowance is just £76.75 per week. Or if you're one of the 3 million people who work enough to earn more than that while caring for the unwell, disabled or elderly loved one, you get no additional financial support, and you get no right to paid leave for your caring responsibilities, no explicit discrimination protections. You have no right to have your needs for flexibility accumulated. The only right is to request their consideration. Again, the worker is supposed to be separate from the human. It's this aspect that makes the migrant care workers fight for the unpaid family carers fight. A site of shared struggles that is unrecognised but important on the basis of meaningful change. The Home Secretary's announcement is clearly a manifestation of the anti-migrant and racist policies symptomatic of the contemporary UK. It deserves opposition in that respect, but it should also draw our attention to this other care-specific aspect. Cleverly and the rest of the cabinet likely neither perform their own care nor rely state-provided pay care workers, and are therefore immune to relatives of trying to be both human and worker. But their electorate is not. As the crisis in care deepens, this may be just a policy they come to regret. Very powerful opinion piece there by. Powerful opinion piece by. Why does it not say who it's by? Emily Kenway. Sorry, Emily Kenway. That's her opinion piece. I think a very powerful piece there. I don't really have any more to add on to that, if I'm honest, guys. Yeah, it's inhumane to say the least. That is for sure, guys. So I've got one more article for you guys here. I've had to do some adjusting to the camera because of the because this one is obviously from Byline Times. Now I've had to put that on the top because in order for me to fit, because it was too black, I've just stuck that on the top, the like, share, subscribe thing, because I couldn't do any more, because I want you guys to see the text of what I'm saying, because I think that's a very important caveat for you guys. So the headline from Byline Times, our last piece, is to conclude political parties do not fulfil a public function is fantastical. Nicholas Reed-Langdon exposes the dismissal in the courts of Tortoise's claims that political parties are not purely private organisations. So, Liz Truss was elected as leader of the Conservative Party in September 2022. Unable to outlast her lettuce, she will soon succeed by Rishi Sunak as a safe pair of hands, needing to restore an economy that has taken a running jump off a high cliff. On both occasions, the new Prime Minister was not chosen by an electorate of 60 million people, but an electorate of barely 200,000 people. Those people had paid to become a member of the Conservative Party. When this electorate made its choice, it shifted the British Consortium constitution into gear. Outside 10 Downing Street, a government Jaguar rolled into place, ready to chauffeur the latest PM in waiting Whitehall and down the Mall into Buckingham Palace. Appearing before the monarch that would be invited to form a government, this invitation may be formally at the behest, at the discretion of the monarch, as one of the fewest royal prerogatives. But the substance of the invitation is crafted by the Conservative Party membership, or in brackets, or the membership of whichever party holds the majority in the House of Commons. But the default position of the UK's unwritten constitution is that the state has no interest in the Conservative Party and its membership. It is a private, unincorporated organisation, beholden to nothing and to no one but itself. It may have helped select 28 Prime Ministers, and even highly ministerial offices over the past 13 years may have been filled by someone from the Tory ranks. But this party is a private institution, not a public one. The rules that it makes and the decisions which its members come to are ongoing to concern for those inside the party. Tortoise, the slow news organisation, challenged the status quo in the High Court, arguing that political parties like the Conservatives are not purely private organisations but semi-public ones, that their function is inextricably entwined in the British state, and when it steps out of its private sphere onto the public terrain, it should be scrutinised in the same way that other public bodies. Lang J in the High Court rejected this, writing, "It is not a public body and it does not exercise public functions. The election of the leader of the Conservative Party is not a function of public law nature. Whether or not the leader becomes Prime Minister is a prerogative power of the monarch, and the Conservative Party has no powers in this regard." There is an Alice in Wonderland air to this reasoning, but it does not stop Follum J coming to the same conclusion. In a decision handed down this week, he dismissed Tortoise's claim, writing that the appointment of the Prime Minister had not been an outsource to a political party. The Conservatives may have changed their leadership, but the question of whether their leader becomes Prime Minister is still in the hands of the monarch. In the past, Follum decided this on this basis, that the Conservative Party's role within the Constitution is not one that could be fulfilled by a local authority or statutory body. Such as the situation would be a massive surprise verging on the impossibility. Fordham may be right in this latter point, but the counter-hypocritical that it entails is tenuous. Any laterite left in the British constitution as a result of the extinction of political parties could not be filled by a state body, but equally the mass extinction of political parties would not give the monarch an unchecked right to nominate whoever he fancied as Prime Minister. The monarch would have to ask the people. From here it follows that the members of the Conservative Party or any other political party, so long as they are given the say on who should be the leader of the party, are exercising a public function. They are a proxy for the people. Doubtless, Forum considers this and dismisses it on the basis that the UK does not have a presidential system but a parliamentary one. Voters do not elect an individual but a party. At the last election they gave the Conservatives a majority, and with this majority they can do what they want, and up to and appointing whoever they want as leader. Such argument is orthodox, but an orthodoxy as it obsolete, unable to grapple with the contemporary reality of the British Constitution. Britain may still have superficial structure of parliamentary elections, but these elections is the nature of the prime ministerial office have transmortified into de facto presidential elections. As I and others have noted, the British execute now holds the whip hand over the state, and ultimately power wielded by number 10 and not by the Palace of Westminster. The only mechanism really available to Conservative MPs concerned about their leadership is to hold a vote of no confidence. But this forgets how partisan British politics is today. When you consider this and the character of most Conservative MPs and the odds of them choosing a vote of no confidence and a general election over buckling down and accepting whether their membership to choose a leader are nil. These, after all, are MPs who watch Boris Johnson disregard every constitutional norm going en route to this slow-motion resignation, which was only because of the internal party politics, only through Liz Truss after she tanked the housing market and the economy, and who are leading support to Rishi Sunak as he tries to pass legislation denying reality in Rwanda. To suggest that these decisions of the members have let this trio of incompetents occupy the highest office in the country should be immune from jurisdictional scrutiny on the basis that Parliament will hold whatever they choose to account is equivalent to arguing that all those chocolate fireguard needs to work is sugarcane icing. Like the food choice of words there. This does not mean that Forum's substance conclusion in this case was wrong. However, talkers may have changed the private status of the party, but this was only in a bid for information on the membership of the Conservative Party. Nothing on the information sought is likely to cast doubt on the party's processes on the selection of Truss and Sunak. Talkers readers may have some interest in this process, but mere curiosity is not enough to set aside foundational constitutional principles. But Fulham could have rejected the substance of the claim while still accepting that political parties play a vital role in the state, and that this role is a public one given the right circumstances and the courts have jurisdiction over. Conservative members select the leader of their party, and history shows a Prime Minister at least more often than not to conclude that they and other political parties do not fulfil a public function is fascinal. The government might be trying to sign treaties with Rwanda that force the country and the courts to ignore the evidence that their eyes and ears, but it does not mean that the courts should get on board with this approach too. This was written by Nicholas Reed Langan, and I thought it was a very fascinating piece, guys. I hope you found that very informative and interesting, because I certainly found that very informative and interesting indeed. Interesting to say the least. Yeah, there is, without a doubt, after reading that, guys, there is a much need for reform in our political system. The system is not fair. It's not democratic, as we as people tried to claim it is. It is in a way similar to ways of America, I think it's fair to say, because they have certain things done certain way in America where it's very difficult for people are stuck between two-tier party system there in America. My fear is I don't want us to be stuck in a two-tier party system, choosing between red and blue. I want different options, and we should be entitled to have different options. And those in power know that if we have proportional representation, it will put the likes of Labour and the Conservatives, and it will change everything forever. It will give power back to the people, power that the British public have not had for a long time, allowing us to have our voice again, because we've not had our voice. and slowly but surely it's been eroded from us. And I don't approve of whatsoever. And I do generally believe that we should change, the law should be changed, that if a leader of a party is forced to step down or resign, there should be an automatic general snap election should be called, because we should have a right to be able to decide who should be the leader of the party, whether it is a new leader under the new political party or the opposition. It should be a given. It's not right that a political party that is in government, that was voted by the people, does not have a say on who should be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. I think that is wrong, and it's undemocratic, and we should have a say in that matter. We, the British public, we didn't vote to elect Rishi Sunak as the Prime Minister. We didn't vote to elect Liz Truss as the Prime Minister. We did vote for Boris Johnson. We did vote for David Cameron, and we did vote for Theresa May. Whether we wanted them or not, the vast majority of us wanted them. Whether people listening to this wanted them or not, we voted for them. It was democratically voted for. But we have to stop allowing allowing other people who are not voted for by the British public to be given to be given an opportunity to run with it without any kind of accountability from the British public. And I think that's really important to emphasise, guys. And on that note, we've come to the end of Regan's Newsround. What did you make of the stories today, guys? Let me know what you guys honestly think down in the comments section below, not just in the Premier chat, but in the actual chat as well. I'm interested to hear your thoughts about some of the stories that we've talked about today. Before we go, if you can, hit the like button, it'd be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media and hit the bell notification icon so you'll be notified of when I upload another video or when I go live. And if you want to financially support me, which I would greatly appreciate, you can do so by buying me a coffee or joining me on Patreon. Both the links are in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.